will get the coverage. Just one final anecdote. You've also got to have your story, present your story properly. In June, I covered an event, a charity event, in which an ice cream company, which shall go unidentified, promised to make a donation to charity for every tub of ice cream it sold. So we went there and we thought, okay, this is good, they're giving money to charity. And I asked the president of the company on camera, what percentage are you giving to charity? He said, I don't know. And I'm on camera and said, you don't know? And he goes, no. That's the clip we used that night on our story. That's bad. I asked the PR person after, and they said, we didn't know, but they wouldn't tell me. So their idea of a positive story, hey, we're giving money to charity, suddenly turned into a negative. This company won't tell what percentage of profits it's giving to charity. And the question in the viewer's mind was, are they giving anything at all? So it's just little mistakes like that that, you know, can save your event.
Would you say that there's a negative bias to the media and they're always looking for those negative stories as well?
No, not at all. I mean, there's nothing we like better than to do a story like the Chilean miners. I mean, look at the viewership around the world. A happy story. I mean, most media, with some exceptions, the scandalous types, are not looking for a negative story. But that was the case of the ice cream company. It was just so blatant that they were hoping to get attention and not actually have anything concrete. They were going to, I wondered, are they giving 5%, are they giving 1/10 of 1%? And there's no way I could go on the air and say, hey, isn't this great, this ice cream company is giving an unknown amount of money to underprivileged children.
I guess just one of the things, and engaging here with the audience, one of my blushes with literacy, I've only been in the industry for 2 years now, and it goes along your great insight, Simon, about news and news coverage and what's going to get us noticed. At the end of the day, I mean, our cause is not urgent enough, I think, from a news perspective. It's not cancer. Someone is not going to die, or at least I'm sorry if I offended anybody here, but I don't think anybody's going to die. Oh, here we go.
Yeah. I get exception to this. People
Please,
do
yeah.
die. My name is Anna Bertry, and I am a Francophone literacy service provider, which means that we are doubly in minority, because we are a minority population, and the illiterate are also a minority group, so I work with double minority. And it is a question of life and death. When I had a learner, who you said you love stories, so I'm going to give you one. I had a learner, a young woman of 28, who had feminine problems. And she went to the doctor and she said, I wish I could get rid of those infections and be clean once and for all. At 28, she woke up with a hysterectomy because of the language barrier. So it is a question of life and death. And also we have right at the moment, in the Francophone field at least, we have a changing demography. People come from the Francophone countries of Africa, and I have learners who are 23, 24, and they cannot read syllables. They know their ABCs, but they cannot recognize letters. And I work with those people, and I have to go back as if I am giving a syllabus to a 4-year-old, and with a 24-year-old. And you don't want to treat them like babies, but in a way you have to take by the hand and treat them like babies to make a change. And every time I get a new learner like this, I become a learner, because I have to know how to put my pace to their pace.
Ça, c'est très important. C'est fantastique.
Oui, mais on est obligé de faire comme ça. On ne peut pas faire autrement.
Oui, d'accord.
So this is why when you say it's not like...
So thank you for sharing that story, and thank you for giving me further insight. And you're right. So here's, coming back to Jody, your point about we're not quiet here.
Exactly.
Everybody got up. They wanted to tell a story. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. And also I think when we're talking about stories in our community, maybe, like we always think of, we always have these amazing learner stories. Always have these amazing learner stories. And some of them get told and some of them don't. And I think it was Judy during the opening panel who made a really phenomenal, no, sorry, it was Carol, who made a phenomenal point of we need to link that story that we know and we understand and is in our language. We need to link that to something that's happening in society and happening in the outside world so that other people can relate to it and understand it at the same time. So I just wanted to throw that out because I think that when we talk, we've been talking about stories at the table, we maybe automatically, or maybe it's just me, automatically in my mind, I think of an individual story, but it could also be an organization's story, or a society's story, or the story of demographic change, or all of those kinds of things. Because I'm just wondering, like, do those kinds of stories carry much weight?
Active audience is fantastic.
Okay, so we'll go Helena, or sorry, what's your name? Allison, and then Helena.
No, just to, in response to the life and death. When I started in literacy about 4 years ago, like many, I came from highly educated parents. I had every advantage and need provided, and really didn't understand how someone could be 20 years old and not know how to read. And someone shared a story with me that really impacted, and it was a life and death situation. It was a young mother who could barely recognize her alphabet. She had a 6-month-old infant with a fever. She went to her cupboard to get the Tylenol bottle to know how much Tylenol to give her baby, and she didn't know. She just took a good guess. Now, fortunately, nothing dire happened, but it could. So we're not just looking at parents, we're looking at children. And I do want to applaud you for your website. It has been a wonderful resource and tool for me since it's been launched. I've used many of your fact sheets when communicating with the media. Yeah. It's been very helpful, and they've really appreciated it and got a lot of positive feedback from them to be able to run them off, email them to them, and say, this is the background.
So just to jump right into, as a continuation of that, so there are stories that can be told, and some of them are positive and some of them are negative, and they all have intended outcomes. Yeah. And the question is not just about telling your stories, but what do you want to have happen around that? And if you wanted to get picked up by someone like Simon, how do you need to tell it so that it fits into his needs? Simon, I mean, is there a set of, I'm going to call them unsaid, you know, what is there a type of stories that are undertold?
Probably, yes, Jim. With regard to what Allison said, the mother who couldn't read the Tylenol bottle, that's a great way to sell the story on literacy. In a case like that, and you said the baby survived, that's great news. That to me is what we call a hook. Hey, a baby could have died because of the literacy problem. And if you held a news conference, and this is the tough part, getting the mother to come out and say, yes, I have a problem with literacy, my baby could have died, that's how you grab the media's attention, because that's the kind of thing you don't see normally during the day. It's a very hard thing to do. We call them, for lack of a better term in the media business, victims, and they are. And every day the assignment editor will say, okay, you have the story on paper, you have statistics, do you have a human person or a victim to build the story around? And that's what you need to tell that story. You can't hold a news conference and say, there's a woman whose baby almost died. If you don't have the person there, you won't get the story from TV, radio.
What happens if your story, there's all sorts of stories about the possibilities, as Allison has just said, and there's a yard and a half of those, Peter and Mr. Desmarais in Montreal, and so on and so forth. But how do you get media to work with the concept of the societal impact of the totality of lack of literacy skill in the province? 48% and growing. And that figure,
but Anthony, I have to tell you, this is exactly like the Big Brothers Big Sisters story. They were talking about the statistics over and over and over to no end. And then they started telling about the positive stories that were happening. and they started getting the pickup. So I mean, I think it's about a concentrated attack, and it's not about the rational. It's the emotional talk.
But can you tell the individual story without bringing the cause into it, without bringing the step into it? I mean, can you separate those two stories, or do they need to be told together?
I think the best story is always fact and emotion, and you bring the two in together, and you have to figure out what the weight is.
Yeah.
Another
Oh,
one,
my God, Helen,
another
sorry.
one of our challenges is that what we keep hearing at ABC is that people don't want their stories told. We get told all the time, no, you can't talk to that learner. There's a stigma about literacy. They don't want to be out there in front of the camera talking about it, even if they have had a success in their life through a literacy training.
There used to be a stigma against people with AIDS as well, and they turned that around. It's very difficult, I understand. But until people get over that, we will have that problem with literacy. If people are afraid to go in front of the camera and say, yes, I can't read, then it's going to be difficult for the media to tell the story.
You did just last week, handed out some awards.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's some people that have had literacy challenges, and mostly the people that have overcome. And he was a snowplow driver from
Kevin
Antigonish.
Lambert, yeah, Kevin.
What an incredible guy! And he stood up and he spoke brilliantly, with stories, with emotion, and with facts underneath it. And you know, not to put someone out on a pedestal or whatever, but I mean, if you have those tools to bring it down to an actual selling of a cause, you need to use them.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I really believe it's that toolbox that you have, and I use this for years, is when you're selling something, it can't be just a cookie cutter that you take to every situation. You have to have a growing toolbox, and at ABC we're very lucky to have great staff, and great ideas, and great tools to be able to utilize those things. But it's not foreign to anybody else. I see Patricia was
We have
there.
Patricia, and then we have Eric, and then I think Leslie.
This is great.
Yeah, keep it coming.
As far as the learner stories are concerned, for myself, I think if we come at it from a different aspect other than what I always term the pity party story. Nobody wants to hear the pity party story, but a productive story. Like myself, I was always able to read, but I have learning challenges. And because of the program at St. Lawrence College in Kingston, that was such an amazing program. I have gone from being a person who is upgrading their skills to international. I'm with International Literacy. I'm part of developing the International Adult Learners Charter. I'm with Canada Without Poverty and the Literacy Committee. It's just, and I'm federally, provincially, nationally, and internationally involved. So, but nobody wants to tell a story, and I've actually been asked to tell a story so that I look pitiful. That is not treating a person with dignity and respect.
Not treating our cause.
So, you know, yes, hear the stories, they're very important, but they have to come that this is where I was, this is what I did, this is where I'm going. And thank you very much, literacy.
And I find that to be like a really intricate balance, because where is the line between, you know, talking about the story, talking about the benefits of the cause, and then sometimes I feel like there's this like uncomfortable line of like, I don't know if the word is exploitation, not exploitation, but you know, like that pity party that you were saying. So like there's this, I don't know.
May I address
Yeah, of course.
What, to help address that, what the committee has done is the Committee of Adult Literacy Learners with CLLN. It's to get the buy-in of people such as myself, people who are in the educational system, who have had good responses, who have not been segregated. When you come up with these workplace initiatives, they're, hey, yeah, I'm ready, I want to do that. People like myself, where's the door? How can I get out of here? Because you don't want to be, you're so unsure of yourself. So what we've decided to do is a lady, adult learner, who has written a book that there was a documentary done about it. We're taking that book and developing it into a learning curriculum with a study guide. And instead of having somebody write a story for English, what did you do today or yesterday? Look at the book. You can see yourself in that book. So you know you're not alone. And answer questions to it, and it lets you know that you're not, that we're really not so special, we're just like everybody else. But because we've been in that little segregated box, for whatever reason, there's no blame game here. That's a waste of time. It's